Hey everybody. So, today we're having another Skald Stories. And today's topic is going to be about LGBTQ plus so on and so forth characters and stories and themes. Now this is a hot topic and it's been a hot topic for years now, so I'm pretty late to the party, but I am not LGBTQ or I'm not any of that. I'm straight or cisgendered if that's what you prefer to call me. Whatever. I don't care. So I am not a major authority on this subject. However, as I've said before, storytelling, characters, all of this is something that is very important to me. So I would like to give my take on it. Love it or hate it, I'm just putting it out there. So here we go. So you have to admit that the whole woke movement and whatever pisses people off. You have to admit that. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, you have to agree that the woke movement has damaged any possible method to incorporate the quote unquote message or this theme into storytelling. And the reason for that is people feel like it's getting shoved down their throats very forcefully. But there are ways to do that without subjecting people to that kind of way of thinking. The damage that this has caused is now when someone sees a gay character or a trans character or any of that in games or movies or media or anything, they immediately go, ugh, woke, right? Yeah, bleh, wokeness, gross. It's been damaged. You can't deny that. It's been damaged, but there are ways to make it work. And I'm going to show you one example of how it works, which I've already touched on before with other people, and I'm going to share that with you. This will probably be a lot shorter than the Edgelord video, but this is just my take on it. So, like I said, love it, hate it. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not hating on one side, I'm not hating on the other. My objective is good storytelling. That's all it's about. So, to get started, what are the don'ts? I'm not going to use a notepad like I had before because I'm going to keep this brief. What are the don'ts of this topic? You don't shove it down people's throats. Do not do that. Do not make a focus of that subject as part of the driving story. Because what that does is you're shoving idealism down people's throats. You're not giving them the opportunity to empathize or to really interact. You're becoming preachy at that point, and nobody likes to be talked down to like that. Nobody likes to be lectured. Like back in the day, a lecture, like from a big professor back in the day, was a big deal. But now when people hear the word lecture, they think being talked down to, being treated like I'm stupid, someone else is basically assuming that they have authority over me on topics and things. That these are negative traits that will turn people away from what you're trying to teach them, from what you're trying to what your goal is. There are much better ways of doing this. And that's why this is called How to Make It Work. Because the message itself isn't wrong. The person wants to feel validated. The person wants to feel acknowledged. They want people to understand what they're going through. The problem is the method they use to do that. So I'm going to give you an example that everyone knows. And that's Dragon Age Veilguard. Now, I personally haven't played Veilguard, and I'm probably never going to, because that game is beyond preachy, it's forceful, and to be honest, a lot of the writing doesn't even seem that great from what I've seen. Like I said, I haven't played it, so I'm not the authority. I'm just going off of what I've seen, reviews of other people, what they're covering it. And it does some things right and it does some things wrong. This is one of those things it does wrong. So Tosh sits down with her mother and comes out as non binary, which means she doesn't identify with either male or female. She's neither both, but she is also both. She's somewhere in the middle, and she's struggling with this identity. And she has finally come to the conclusion that this is what she wants to be. This is how she feels. This is how she wants to be acknowledged. This is how she wants to be treated. Okay, fair. That's fair. Now, I understand the point of this scene. She sits down with her mother, and her mother questions her on how do you feel this way? Maybe you think you're this way. Maybe you think you're that way. And Tosh responds aggressively. Why can't you just accept me for who I am? Why can't you just look past all of this and just accept me as your offspring? I can't say daughter. As your offspring, I guess. I'm sorry if I don't have a more proper word for this. But the problem with this scene is the writing. The message itself, I think, is fine. It's a person struggling with who they are. It's a person that doesn't know where they fit in the puzzle piece, where they fit in the puzzle in the grand. They're a piece that doesn't have a place. They're trying to find one, but everywhere they go, they just don't fit. So when I see a non-binary person, to me, that tells me a puzzle piece that says, screw you, I don't want to fit into the puzzle. I want to go do my own thing. I want to go fit into a different puzzle where I fit perfectly. Okay, cool, fine. Good, whatever. It's whatever to me. Fine, that's great. The problem is how they portrayed the mother. And to be honest, it's not necessarily a bad thing how they did it, because it is a realistic reaction of how a parent would react to this type of situation. So what happens is Tosh tells her, I'm non-binary, I'm not a she, I'm not a he, I'm a they. I want to be neutral ground because this is where I feel comfortable. This is where I feel like a person. And the mom says, well, maybe you fit into this category. Maybe this is the thing. What is it called? A cunithlock? A cunithlock? Cunilock? Something like that? I forget. She says, maybe this is what you feel. Already, that's a problem. That's a problem because that's confrontational. That's a confrontational tactic to try to justify how her quote unquote daughter, she sees her as a daughter, sorry. That's what she sees her as. Or that's how she sees them as. Look, I don't do this often, so forgive me if I slip up with the pronoun thing. I'm not used to it. I have my own political beliefs, which I'm not going to reiterate here. So please bear with me. The point is what I'm trying to talk about, not how I'm talking about it, which is contradictory to the video. So just, damn it. Just look. Okay, let's just cut this off and try again. So the mom reacts more confrontationally by questioning or challenging Tasha's position. Tosh responds also incorrectly. She says, why can't you just accept me for who I am? Why do you have to question it? Why do you have to question this? You have to understand, a parent like this doesn't understand this concept. That's why she's forcing the conflict into it. That's why she's saying, well, maybe this is how you feel. You know, she's trying to identify it in the way she understands how. Tosh sees it differently. She reacts aggressively. Why are you questioning it? Why aren't you just accepting me? Because she doesn't understand. If you want her to understand, you have to empathize. You both have to empathize with each other. You both have to look at it like, here's the situation, here's how it's described. Like, you have to explain what this means. You can't just say, I'm non binary, I'm going as they. What does that mean? To the mom, she has no idea what the hell that means. So explain it to her. Just say, I don't feel like I fit as a man or a woman. I don't feel like I fit anywhere. Like, how do I say this without being offensive? All right, I'm gonna use an example here, so please, again, forgive me ahead of time. But this is the best way I know how to describe it, so I apologize ahead of time. Let's say, for example, Tosh says, I don't fit the feminine mold. I don't fit the beauty standards or the high heels and the dresses, the stereotypical woman. But I also don't fit the masculine side with the big testosterone and bravado and car mechanic and grilling out and blah, blah, blah. She feels like she's somewhere in between, which makes sense because she is a what is their what is their race called again? I forget. It's the Kunari. Yeah. So she's a female Kunari. Who the Kunari are very muscular, very tall, very warrior like, and she's a female in that mold. But as you can see, she's not exactly a typical Kunari. So she's stuck in this very tough, very kind of muscular, uh, muscle woman. So it's understandable that she doesn't feel like she fits the mold, stereotypically wise, if that makes sense. She doesn't feel like she fits the mold between feminine and masculine. So she's trying to compromise for the in between. So she's trying to combine both images together to fit, I suppose. Again, I'm not an authority on this, so forgive me if I'm kind of talking out of my ass. I'm trying my hardest here. This has a point, I promise. But like I said, the character itself, in and of itself, isn't the problem. The method is the problem. The problem is how the characters approach this situation. The writing is the problem. How do they approach the situation? How they interact with each other about it? How they respond to each other? They're trying to portray the struggle between the mom and the quote unquote daughter. Again, I don't have a replacement word for son or daughter. And offspring makes it sound like she's some kind of tube baby. I don't know. I'm trying with Tosh, and they're trying to uh let's say replicate a real life interaction between a person who is confiding in their mother about their identity. They're trying to portray to people that play this game, hey, this is what trans people or non-binary people, this is what these people in this community go through. This is what they go through with their parents. And again, to the player, you're preaching. You're shoving it down their throat. You're not doing it in a constructive storytelling way, because the people that play games, they're here for the experience. They're not here to be preached at. They're not here for politics. So when you come at it this aggressively, they'll either tune it out entirely or they'll skip past it. They'll just completely ignore this situation, in which case the message is lost. It's literally lost in translation. That's the problem. To sum it up in a nutshell, you're putting the message before the characters. If you want this message to succeed, you have to put the character before the message. And Dragon Age has already done that. His name is Dorian. Dorian is a fantastic example of how this is to be done. Now, In order to keep myself from repeating what I've already talked about, I did leave a comment on another YouTube video several months ago discussing this topic. And I'm going to just read over what I already said because it already covers all the points I want to make. Here it is. Just a second here. I can make that a bit bigger. There we go. Try that. Now, what I said was, if you want a good example of a gay character done correctly, look at Dorian from Dragon Age Inquisition. The key behind Dorian is he's a character first and gay second. In the story, he comes from a country called Tevinter, a place where mages rule. Everyone else is a second-class citizen, and the only thing that matters is power. Dorian sees the threat of the current BBEG, the current threat they pose, and so he joins the Inquisition. Dorian's personal story involves his hatred for his father. Mages of Tevinter see power as the one and only thing that matters. It's what gets you recognized and gives you higher status. Being the heir to House Pavas, his father wants to keep their family in power and even grow it. To do this, Dorian must not only marry another powerful mage, but produce a child from that union to carry on the house name. The conflicting factor is Dorian is gay. Because of this, his father casts him out and disowns him. If you look deeper into the character, he doesn't do it because his son is gay. He does it because Dorian is abandoning his duty to the family legacy, and it will damage their reputation and status in a country where those are the only traits that make you worth a damn. Later in the story, Dorian's father contacts him to meet up. Naturally, Dorian is hesitant because he fears that his father is trying to bring him back by force to marry and have children, but he agrees to meet anyway. When they do, Dorian opens up to his father, how he felt about the situation, and just wanting to be accepted. Much to his surprise, his father didn't come to do any of that. He came back because he missed his son. Dorian is shaken by this because he doesn't know if it's a trick, if it's genuine, or whatever it may be, and it's up to the player to influence Dorian to either cut ties or try to rebuild his relationship with his father. In the end, Dorian is gay. But that is used as a driving factor in his story, not the story itself. Dorian's father doesn't care that his son is gay in the sense of sexuality. He cares because Dorian is risking the standing of House Pavas. In his father's eyes, Dorian could just suck it up, marry a woman, and force himself to birth children for the greater good of the house. But Dorian doesn't want to hide or abandon what he is. Dorian's story is about dealing with the political nuances of his home country, and being gay is at the center of why that story has conflict. Apart from that, Dorian is a man of noble standing. He loves reading books, drinking wine, playing chess, and discussing magic. Dorian never says, "So, I'm gay. Yeah, that's a big deal. What do you think about that?" Or, "So, I'm gay. Does this affect the war at all?" He never brings attention to his sexuality until it becomes a factor in the story, because it's not his defining trait. In short, Dorian isn't a gay man. He is a man that is gay. That is how you do it. You don't make the sexuality of the character the main focus. You make it a factor in the story. For Dorian and his father disowns him because he's gay. Yes, that's true. He's disowning him because he's gay. But is that the reason? The context behind it is because Dorian not giving birth to children is not advancing the house in a country where political power is what gets you your status. If you're not a mage, you're already on the losing side. If you are a mage, you have to be a powerful mage. And powerful mages are born through the union of other powerful mages. The blood mixes together and creates an even more powerful mage. And the more powerful you are, the higher standing you are in the country. This is similar to, say, uh, Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones. His whole entire goal is for the house to remain strong. He wants Jaime Lannister to have children. He wants him to quit the King's Guard so he can have children and keep the legacy of the house going. Jaime doesn't want to. So Tywin is very frustrated. His daughter had a son, Joffrey, but he doesn't know that that's Jaime's kid. He thinks it's Robert Baratheon's kid. Spoilers. And he doesn't believe Tyrion is capable. He hates Tyrion. So Tywin is very similar to Dorian's father in this aspect. He is so hard bent on making sure that his family's legacy is in a position of power that he wants Dorian to just suck it up. Just find a woman, impregnate her. That's all you got to do. To the father, this seems simple. You don't have to like it. You don't have to even like her. Just do your thing. Bada bing, bada boom. Baby in the womb. How you doing? Right? There you go. The conflict comes from Dorian saying, no, I will not do it. I will not betray who I am to satisfy your family. And Dorian loves his country. He loves Tevinter. He always expressly says, I love my country. They may be misguided in their ways, but they're people. They may have different beliefs than yours. They may do things kind of cruelly, like slavery in Tevinter is fine. They have slavery in Tevinter. Dorian loves his country for itself. He doesn't look at the politics of it, which is a whole other topic in and of itself. So let's go back to Dorian here. And like I said, every time you talk to Dorian, he doesn't bring up his sexuality until you talk about it. He talks about books. He talks about magic. He talks about his home. He talks about his country's politics. He drinks wine. He plays chess. He's a nobleman. If you bring him to the party in, I forget the country, you could bring him to a noble party, fancy party, and he mingles with people. He eats the food at the buffets. He drinks wine. He interacts with other nobles. Not once is attention brought to, hey, I'm gay. Not once does that impact the story. I mean, it does impact the story, but not in the way that Veilguard does it. Dorian says, I don't want to betray who I am. I am not going to just bow down to anyone that tells me to abandon my principles. He doesn't hate his father. He hates what his father is trying to do. And when you convince Dorian to meet up with his father, the father says, Dorian, I'm here because I miss my son. I'm sorry that I put you through this. And his dad even questions it. He's like, what's the problem, Dorian? What's the problem? He doesn't say, why won't you sleep with this girl? Why won't you think of the house? Why won't you do this? Why won't you do that? Maybe this is how you're feeling. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe your thinking is incorrect. Maybe this is how you feel. His dad doesn't try to correct him. He just tells him, hey, just suck it up and do it, okay? You can be gay. You can be gay. He doesn't care. His dad doesn't give a shit. Be gay, whatever. Just do it for the family. All you have to do, marry a woman and just keep up appearance. Just live a lie. Just live a lie. Sleep with whoever you want. Just have a kid with her. Whatever. Fine. Dorian refuses. So the dad says, all right, fine. Screw you then. Get out of here. You've abandoned your family. You've abandoned our name. You've abandoned your position. You've abandoned your duty to your family. And so the dad casts him out. So now the dad returns and says, Dorian, I miss my son. I want you to come home. The dad still tries to say, hey, we can talk about it if you want. We can discuss it. And Dorian doesn't necessarily snap at him, but he talks at him very sternly. He says, there's nothing to discuss, father. There's nothing to discuss. This is who I am. I won't abandon who I am. He doesn't challenge his father. He reinforces his own position. He doesn't say, Dad, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're the one that's messing up. You're the one that's the problem. No. Dorian says, this is what I believe, and I'm standing up for it. And if you don't like that, then I don't know what to tell you. Not once does he tell his dad off. He says, Dad, this whole thing started because you wanted to force a life on me, and I didn't want it, so I left. You kicked me out, I left, we cut ties. It's what it is. And the cool thing about this scene is Dorian asks you to be there because he trusts you and he wants your strength. He wants your support. Not once do you speak up during the conversation. I mean, there might be one or two times where you kind of ask a question to Dorian or the dad. You might say something like, "Wait, what's going on? Why is your dad having a problem?" And then Dorian looks at you and says, "Because I prefer the company of other men." He says I'm gay very classily, I might add, which is very Dorian. But the entire time the scene is focused on Dorian dealing with his father. And at the very end, you're the deciding factor in whether or not you think Dorian should cut ties with his dad or try to rebuild their relationship. And you can tell Dorian, he's your dad, man. Not only did your dad come here of his own free will to see you, he did it because he wants to see you. He's not here to take you away. He's not here to take you away by force. The dad is here to rebuild their relationship. That's the point. Dorian being gay is the cog in the wheel of the story, not the machine itself. The father is here because Dorian being gay was what caused the family to split apart. Because the argument was over the family, and being gay was the stick in the spokes that caused the wheel to tip over. You know, you throw a stick into a bike wheel and the whole thing comes toppling over. That's the part. It's not the bike itself. And you tell Dorian, your father not only came here of his own free will, he did it because he misses you. He already says he's not here to force you back. The dad says, if you want, we'll cut ties here, and then that'll be the end of it. But he's here for his son. That is how you get the message across. That is how you portray an LGBTQ storyline without being preachy. You make it sympathetic. You want to understand both Dorian's position and the father's position. If you can see both sides of the argument without being preachy, then the reader or the player or whoever is involved will understand the situation. That will build an emotional connection with the characters, and that will make the story deeper. They will attach themselves to Dorian's problem, and they will understand the father's perspective. Even if they don't agree with it, the thing is that they understand it. The problem with Veilguard is it punches you in the face with the topic. It doesn't make it subtle. Dorian's is subtle without being subtle. It's there, you can see it, you can see the problem, but it's not the focus. It's not the focus. It's like, let's say you have a painting of a landscape, trees, rivers, hills, mountains, and then you have a sun all the way up in the top. The sun is there to make all the colors of the painting bright because it's daytime, right? So you can see the green in the trees, you can see the snow topped of mountains, you can see the flowing river below. The sun isn't the focus. The focus is the entire painting itself, the bigger picture. That's what you want. So, when it comes to Veilguard, how do we incorporate this? How do we take the Dorian method and apply it to Veilguard? Now, the mother of Tosh doesn't disown her. She doesn't have the same motivations as the father. She doesn't have the same motivations. Her motivations is her daughter left. She's here to meet with her, and then the daughter says, "Hey, I'm non-binary. I go by they and them from now on. Not she. I'm not a woman. I'm not a dude. Blah 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 blah." Already, you've started off wrong. Already, you started off wrong. The mother is here of her own free will, at least as far as I understand. I'm not really sure on the reason of why the mother is there. But the first mistake you make is Tosh is leading with that subject. She's addressing that problem as the focus. The first thing you mention as the focus is the problem. You have to change that focus. So, for example, a different thing I would have done for Tosh is I would have said, Mom, there's something I really want to talk to you about. There's something that's been bothering me, and it's really affecting me. And I think talking to you about it would help give me some closure. Already, that's a better method in my eyes because you've addressed the problem is not Tosh's sexuality. You're addressing Tosh's inner struggle. And like any mother, they would be concerned for their offspring's mental being. I don't know how it works with the Kunari. I don't think they give a rat's ass about things like that. But from a human standpoint, a parent looks at their child and they say, "My child just admitted to me that they're struggling. I want to find out why and I want to fix it so my child feels better." So instead of bombarding the mother with the problem, you trigger her empathy with her child because Tosh is her child. And a mother's love, for the most part, is they want their child's happiness. They want their child to be happy. So immediately, by making Tosh vulnerable, by making her open up, not only have you made her courageous because she's taken the first step in this new thing, she's coming out to her parents who don't understand the situation. So she's in a bad spot. She has to not only explain the situation in a simple way the parent will understand, but she's also taking the risk in the parent how they're going to react to it. She doesn't know how they're going to react. It's an unknown. But by Tosh opening up and saying, "Hey, I'm scared, I'm vulnerable, there's something wrong, and I want your help." She's not saying that directly. She's indirectly saying, "Hey, I'm struggling. I I wanted to talk to you about this." That's a subtle way of saying, "I want your help." So, what happens next? The mother would most likely say, "Okay, what's on your mind? What's wrong?" Here's the don't. You don't say, "I'm non-binary. I'm going by this. I'm doing this. I'm doing that." Too aggressive. Too aggressive. Pull it back. You want Tosh, you want empathy in this scenario. You want the player, you want the mother, you want the characters to understand Tosh's struggle. Don't beat people over the head with it like it's a baseball bat. Gotta be gentle about it. You gotta say something like, let's say Tosh says, um, "I know you might not understand this," which already is empathizing with the mother's ignorance. So you're acknowledging that the mother might be ignorant on the situation. So you're acknowledging that. which is good because it means you see something from the mom's perspective. So Tosh says, I know you might not understand this, but I'm struggling with my gender identity. By saying that, Tosh is admitting her vulnerability. She's admitting her vulnerability, which puts her in a weakening position. And by doing that, you can sense or at least see that she is struggling and she needs help. And people want to help. People want to help people who are down, who are depressed, who are struggling, who need assistance. People want to do that. So already you've planted the seeds of empathy by admitting that Tosh is struggling. She has to openly say, I'm not well. And then the mom will ask, okay, what's wrong? What's the problem? Help me understand what the problem is. Tosh, instead of being aggressive, you have to go about it in a way that explains the situation clearly to a person who is ignorant of the entire problem. She doesn't know how gender identity works. She doesn't know how sexuality has evolved over the years. She doesn't know what a trans person is. She doesn't know what a non binary person is. She doesn't know the pronouns z, zer, and zim and all that. She doesn't know this. So the challenge in the writing is you have to have Tosh explain it in a way that's understandable to not only the mother, but the player. Remember, all of this information is going towards the player. You want the player or the reader or whatever to empathize with your character. You want them to empathize, which means understand. If they understand, they build connection. If they build connection, it will make your character stand out more and they will like your character more because they understand them, they empathize with them, they get it. They get it. They're not getting hit by it, they're getting it. So Tosh would say something like, um, I'm struggling with my gender identity, which means I don't know where I fit in the standard male to female scenario. Now, already the mom might be confused by this. So, this is where the explanation comes in. This is where planting another seed of understanding comes in, where Tosh would explain, so I'm I want to be non-binary. Non-binary means I'm not a man, I'm not a woman. I'm a neutral ground because I don't feel like I fit here and I don't feel like I fit here. So, I'm going with a neutral ground where I feel comfortable. And it's helped me be more at peace with myself. I accept myself better when I don't uh when I don't let's see what's the word I'm looking for? It's when I don't um fit in. No, when I don't I'm losing my train of thought here. When she doesn't conform, there it is. When she doesn't conform to the ideals of a man and a woman. Now, that might be a lot of information for the mom and the player to take in. So the mom would say, "Okay, I don't understand." Don't have the mom say, "Oh, well, there's a word for that. It's this, this, and this. Maybe that's how you feel." Nope, aggressive. Nope, don't do that. Bad writing. You want the mom to remember that this is their child. You want to understand what they're going through. You want to help them, but in order to help them, you have to understand what they're going through. So don't have the mom throw out suggestions, have her ask questions. Remember, the motivation of the mother is to understand. She wants to understand what her child's pain is and where it's coming from so she can put an end to it. So the mom would say something like, um, I don't understand what that means. Could you explain to me what it means? And Tosh would say, well, non binary is it's not a man and it's not a woman. I go by the pronouns they and them, which are the neutral pronouns that are not he or she. By having people acknowledge this, They are helping me fit. Um, at that point, it's not that she wants the other players to acknowledge her sexuality. They want She wants other people to accept her situation, which in and of itself sounds kind of preachy because she's basically saying either like me or fuck off. You don't want that. You want Tosh to tiptoe the situation, not because she has to, but because it eases people into it. You know, you don't just burst down someone's door and say, "Call me they them," or no, no, no. You have to be mindful of other people's understanding or ignorance of the situation. If a person already understands, then fine. Then you get it. But if you want someone to understand that has no idea what it means, then you have to tiptoe. Don't think you're tiptoeing because, oh well, I don't want to appear weak or I want to stay strong like Dorian does. Like I said, Dorian doesn't acknowledge that he's gay. He only acknowledges that he's gay when someone else asks him if he's gay. If they talk about his sexuality, he's more than happy to educate them, let's say. So that's what you want Tosh to do. You want Tosh to educate people, not lecture them. Educate them. Say, well, non binary is the middle ground. And in order to embrace that, they use the they, them pronouns. Not he, because those are male. Not she, because those are female. Now, the mom could take this positively or negatively in the story. She could either say, okay, I think I get it. Um, and then the mom would say something like, how do I help you with this? And then Tosh could explain the step-by-step ways of saying, okay, I'm non-binary, so just call me the correct pronouns and just that's it. I mean, how exactly do you acknowledge a person that's non-binary? I personally don't know. I'm not an expert on this situation, but as far as I'm aware, you just use their correct pronouns and don't treat them like a man or a woman. Don't talk about their clothing. Don't ask them why they're not wearing makeup. Don't ask them why they're not lifting weights. Just don't acknowledge it. Just ignore it. It's not your business anyway. It's whatever. But if the mom wants to respond negatively, if you want conflict in the story, you have to do that subtly too. Can't beat people over the head with it. What you could do is you could have the mom say, well, I don't understand why you feel this way. What's wrong with being she? What's the problem with being a daughter? She's being conflicting in the story, but she's being gentle in her approach. She's saying, I don't understand. So she asks a question to help her understand further. She's questioning Tosh, not accusing Tosh. So Tosh would say, well, I just don't feel like I fit as a she. I look like a she. I was born as a she, but I don't feel like I fit as one. I don't feel like I fit as a woman. Whenever I am talked to like I'm a woman, whenever someone addresses me as her or she, whenever I go out and women are dressed in fancy dresses and they got makeup in their hair and I don't, it makes her feel inadequate. It makes her feel like she's a puzzle piece that's not fitting. So she finds somewhere she does fit. And she says, this is where I feel more comfortable. I feel at ease. I feel at peace. The conflict is gone. The confusion is gone. So this is where I feel comfortable, and this is where I want to be. So now Tosh has educated the mother and the player into why she feels this way, how she fixed the problem, and how she wants other people to help her fix the problem. Because referring to her as a she or a her or a woman reminds her of that uncomfortable situation where she didn't fit. She doesn't want to be reminded of that pain and that struggle. She wants to be accepted. And in order to be accepted, you have to be understood. You have to explain, not bash. This is how you could make the Tosh situation work, by making the mother empathetic towards their child, by asking questions, trying to understand. And you can make Tosh likable by making her also empathetic. She has to understand that not everyone thinks like her. Not everybody knows what non binary means, especially a mother who grew up way before this stuff even existed. You have to acknowledge their ignorance in order to work around it, in order to educate them, in order to help them see through your eyes. That's how you do the character. And from there, you just have Tosh explaining things, the mom asking questions and saying, okay, you said you feel more comfortable as a non binary, so how can I help you reinforce that feeling? And Tosh would just be like, don't force me to wear dresses. Don't force me to wear high heels and makeup. Don't treat me like a girl. Don't treat me like a dude. Just treat me as your daughter. Oops. Uh, Treat me as your offspring. I apologize. Treat me as a person. There. Better. Um, so that's how I think it would make the situation a lot better. And by doing all of this, the player is on the same side as the mother. They're ignorant of the situation, but now they're starting to understand because they see that Tosh is being vulnerable, not aggressive. When a person is aggressive, it shows that they can fight for themselves. So why should I help them out? Why do they need my help when they're fighting tooth and nail? They don't need help. This person is already fighting like hell. What do they need me for? So that person already feels a detachment. They feel detached from the character because the character is already fighting for themselves aggressively. You have to acknowledge Tasha's vulnerability. You have to acknowledge the mother's ignorance, and empathy has to be the target of the story. Now, the problem with this is it's not the same as Dorian's. The problem is they don't have another online story. The focus for this is on the sexuality. So you have to find a way to work that where it's a lot more emotionally driven. Nobody wants to walk into an aggressive situation. You don't just sit down at a table and start talking like this. You have to be gentle. Even if your character is big, masculine, and aggressive, remember, the reason that she's talking to her mother like this is because she doesn't feel comfortable already. She doesn't feel comfortable. She's in a spot where she feels comfortable, which means she felt uncomfortable before, which is a weakness. Being uncomfortable is a weakness. Not in the sense of you're weak. It's a weakness as in it's making you not strong. Being strong means accepting yourself. It means being who you are without feeling inadequate, without feeling down, without being depressed. Being depressed is a weakness because it's bringing you down. You have to make people see that Tosh is struggling. No matter how strong she is, no matter how tough she is, no matter how independent she is, you have to point out that she is struggling. Because she is. That's what this whole conversation is about. She's struggling with her identity. She's struggling with making her mom understand her position. She is vulnerable. You have to acknowledge this, or else it won't work. If she's already aggressive, if she already has weapon and armor in hand and she's ready to go to battle over this, then what the fuck does she need you for? Why are you here? She's just here bashing you with the lecture bat. That's not how you get the message across. If you want this message to get across, you have to address both points. It's all about understanding each other, not forcing. Knowledge is power, as they say. The more knowledge you have, the better off you are. I mean that's what I got. That's how I feel this situation could have been better. Based on my experience in other games and other situations and other stories, movies, TV shows, all that. Anything that acknowledges this, I see what they do as good and what they see as doing bad. And I'm taking those patterns and I'm trying to apply it here. And this is how I feel the story would be best told. So, in conclusion, if you want your message to be understood, you have to help people. If you want help, you have to help them. They want to help, but they don't know how. So tell them how. Explain to them how. Don't just tell them what to do and expect them to do it. It's a very gentle subject that requires a gentle hand. I hope this helped. And I mean, if you're going to put this in your stories, maybe this will work, maybe this won't. It's up to you. But just, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say because I want to help you and I want to understand you. Tell your tale, my friend.